Hey, happy Wednesday. I decided at the last minute today that I wanted to get on and do this webinar on how to select the right camps and clinics and really just kind of give you an overview of showcases and all these different things that you may be getting invitations to, and you may be racking your minds like, should we be investing in this? Am I fail? I feel like sometimes they make you feel almost like you're failing your child if you're not going to participate in certain events. So I wanted to get on today to talk about some of the emails that we're seeing that college coaches are sending out, because I think that it's really, really powerful to educate you all about what we're seeing and what it all means. So if you are a family that has any recruiting questions whatsoever, or you have received some camps and clinics and you have questions, I'm going to ask that you go ahead and in either the chat or in the Q&A section down below, if you wouldn't mind starting to ask those questions as I talk. And then what will happen is we'll do a little bit of Q&A kind of throughout the evening that I'm doing this workshop. And I want to make sure that I have an opportunity to address your questions. So I saw a bunch came through as you all registered for the event today. So that was super cool. I got a chance to look through those and kind of get a feel for what's really on your mind. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit and first tell you my name is Kara Hill. I am V-Ball recruiter, or the lady in the red hat. I feel like I get called the lady in the red hat and that girl on TikTok. I get that, and V-Ball recruiter. So over the last 13 years, I've been helping student athletes and their families navigate the recruiting process. We provide step-by-step guidance counseling, we manage video editing, and really provide support as you navigate this process. And as I've been doing this for the last 13 years, one of the things that makes our program unique is as the athletes are emailing coaches, they forward us all their responses because we want to educate your daughter or your family how to respond to those coaches, what you should be saying. And so that's really one of the ways that we really see all the different kinds of emails and camp invites that you're getting, is that families rely on us for this kind of expertise. We also get in the gym and act as a personal advocate for your athletes. So we have personal relationships with just about every college coach in the country. And we leverage those relationships to understand, where is your daughter on their list or their radar? Are they looking for her position in that particular recruiting class? And does it make sense for you to go to camp? Are you in the A group? Are you in the B group? So I want to share that backstory and that background with you to give you a better understanding of how I can speak to the kinds of camps and clinics. A lot of people don't quite understand that we actually help athletes through the recruiting process. They just might know me for my social media content or our news site. So that's why I wanted to share that with you. So we've seen a lot of different tactics this year, different strategies this year that college coaches are using in order to lure athletes to their camps. And the first thing you need to know is that camp is a business for these college programs. The camp revenue that comes in helps to pay the assistant coaches, the volunteer assistant coaches. Many of these coaches don't generate a lot of revenue in their salary. They may make as little as even $20,000 a year for an assistant coach. Head coaches, just to give you some perspective, range anywhere from 55,000, maybe 40,000 in some of the D3s, to upwards of, a lot, like 700,000, 800,000 at some of the, Power Fives, the cream of the crop schools. But for the most part, they're falling in the lower category. And so camps and clinics not only help to give these coaches a bigger recruiting budget so they can get out and attend more major national events. It's a bucket that they use this camp money to also fly in recruits. So they're given a strict budget of what they can spend for their official visits. And their budgets are pretty tight. So I share all of that with you because I think it's important to have that perspective, and just an understanding of what camp is really all about for the programs. Now, for some of them, it's definitely a big recruiting tool. In fact, when I was at Sunshine over the weekend, I was in a conversation with a few of the college coaches, and we were just kind of chit-chatting about the upcoming summer. I had some kids in the gym that I was trying to ask questions about. And it was really interesting because one of the coaches had shared every single one of his recruits he had had an interaction with at camp, that they had either come to his college camp on his campus, or he had gone to a collegiate coaching camp that one of the major clubs had offered. And so he had opportunities to start to build a relationship, build a rapport with some of these athletes at some of these major events. So it's important to kind of help you understand the value of these collegiate coaching camps that are offered at major clubs. There's a few that I want to highlight for you. T Street does one of the best collegiate coaching camps in the country. Their list is already actually posted. If you go to their website, it'll show a list of all the different college programs that are going to be there. And there's a bit of a range. They usually have coaches that not only come and work the camp where they're on the floor and they work with the players, but then they'll even bring in additional programs that come in to recruit at the camp and just to be there to observe. I'm a big fan of their particular event because you end up getting an opportunity to get exposure in front of like 35 different coaches where you get the opportunity to work with the coach. So you start to get a feel of their personality, their coaching style, how they train. And that can be really impactful for your athlete as they're trying to make a decision on what kind of environment is going to be the best environment for them. So T Street does a great job. Some of these big brands that bring in all of these college programs to host the events, these are the best events to go to. Okay. Now, you want to really look at the coaches that are going to be at the camp and see if your athlete is being recruited or could potentially play in any of those any of those college programs. But I'm going to talk about that separately. I want to first start with the clubs that offer the best camps in my experience that I've seen throughout the country. So T Street's been fabulous. Sunshine Volleyball Club does a high academic camp. If your athlete is leveraging volleyball to get a leg up into a top academic school, Sunshine by far, hands down, has the absolute best high academic camp. I would highly recommend that you look at that. I just talked to Carrie today, and she's going to be releasing their list and the registration process shortly. Registration, I think, is going to open in about 2 weeks, but they're working on the flyer of all the college teams that they have committed, and they're going to be releasing that shortly. They typically get a lot of great schools like, Duke and USC, UCLA. So they'll get some big, powerhouse Division I type programs that are at Power 5 schools. They'll get some ACC schools, like Pitt has been known to go to the Sunshine Camp. And then they get some other great academic schools like Emory. Washington University in St. Louis is known to go to that event. NYU is known to go. Haverford has been. So kind of a range of Division I and Division III. I'm a big fan of the Sunshine Camp. I think they do a tremendous job. And my athletes that have gone, that have had experience at those camps, have walked away feeling like it was extremely valuable. they really did get the opportunity to interact with the coaches and talk to them. And so I think there's tremendous value when you're leveraging volleyball to give yourself a leg up. That's a fabulous camp for that. NYC Juniors had a high academic camp. I just looked on their site today because I wanted to reference and see if it was released. I don't see one yet, but I would definitely keep your eye out if you're a family that's on the East Coast. They've done a really nice job at NYC Juniors. They typically have Columbia will go, they've had Brown go, and then they've had University of Chicago and Swarthmore and other high academic schools. So they kind of get a mix of those D1 and D3 programs as well. I haven't seen it released, so I don't know if they're doing it this year, but that's a club that has been known to produce really high level collegiate coaching camps. Wave Volleyball Club and SG Elite do a combined camp. Theirs is in Southern California as well. They do a fabulous job. You can definitely trust that that's going to be a good camp for your athlete to go to. TAV, Drive Nation, Houston Juniors, Skyline, the big clubs in Texas, all the big dogs, they typically bring in a lot of programs that will come in and do their collegiate coaching camps as well. Again, a lot of value when you go to a big brand club that is hosting that kind of event. Some of them bring in more college programs than others. I feel like on the West Coast, Sunshine, SGLV, Wave, T Street bring in more college programs in their weekend that I've seen in the past. Some of the Texas ones, they'll have like Drive Nation last year would have like 2 or 3 college programs in at a time. And then they had multiple sessions where you could go to different sessions and interact with different programs. But there's a lot of value in having your athlete have the opportunity to get in the gym and start building a relationship with those coaches. So really look at the programs that are going to be there. Now, you really need to kind of get somewhat of an athletic evaluation to understand if you're targeting schools where your athlete can play. You can aim high, but you also need to ensure that you've got a realistic set of schools in the gym where your athlete could actually play. And so talking to your club, if you don't have a recruiting coordinator that has a lot of experience, you can ask your club who your daughter reminds them of that has gone on to play college volleyball and look at that athletic conference. That's one really good way. So if you're playing for a smaller club that doesn't have as many resources, it's a really good question to just kind of ask, who do I remind you of? And where did they go off to play? We do athletic evaluations. That's the first thing that we do when we take on an athlete, is we look at where they are academically, athletically. We want to understand what you're looking for socially, geographically, financially, and then as a coaching fit. And those are really important factors to factor in when trying to help you decide on which camps to go to. With our clients, we reach out to the coaches prior to camp to make sure that the kids are on their radar or their list. And then we want to understand, are they in the A group? Like, are they somebody that they're seriously considering? Are they recruiting that position still? Do they intend to bring in, whether it's a setter or a pin or a middle, libero, whatever position they play? And does it make sense for them to actually go and participate in the event? And so we call the week of, we call way before you register, then we call the week of. So you could still pull out if they've already decided that they're going to take somebody else on, which is frustrating and infuriating. And you will more than likely experience this as an athlete at some point. When you go to camp, the coach may say, oh, we decided not to take your position. It's infuriating. It makes some parents' blood boil. And I feel you on that, because that sort of stuff makes me mad too, because you only have so much time, and you have so much time, and then you only have so many resources. And even if you have all the money in the world, we'll still come back to that time. And you need to give your athlete an opportunity to try and get to a couple of different programs to have these experiences. So we like to call before, way before, then we call the week of, and then we call after and say, how did you like Susie Q? Like, is she somebody that you're still genuinely interested in? And A group, B group, kind of how did they perform? That's what we do. If you don't have an advocate, you need to talk to your club. It's hard as a club. They've got a lot of athletes, and what happens is sometimes you ask and then you ask again, and you might end up feeling like you want to give up if they don't follow through. And sometimes they feel uncomfortable reaching out, but they don't want to tell you that. I don't know why. I'm a super clear communicator. But sometimes they just feel uncomfortable with following up with the programs. As a parent or a player, I would highly recommend that after you've had an opportunity to go to a camp, sending a handwritten thank you note to those coaches goes a really long way. So if there are players that came and participated and helped run the camp, it's a really good opportunity to write them like a super cute handwritten note, and it really stands out, and they don't want to throw it away. So it sits on their desk for a while and collects dust, but every time they look at it, they think about you. So kind of worth doing. And then I would tell you to do that again in the fall. Well, fun fact. In the fall, I would hit those people up again and just say, it was so great. Still thinking about my summer days at camp. It was such a great experience, and I want to wish you the best of luck this fall. So those are a couple clever things you can do to stand out from the competition. Now, those are camps. One of the things that I started to see, this happened today to a client, a major Division I program that is a top 10 program in the country, reached out and said that they're looking for a setter in the 2026 recruiting class. And they saw this player play at Sunshine, and they really felt like she was somebody they wanted to see more, that a setter is their top priority in their class, and they wanted to bring her out. They wanted her to go to the actual event. The player that they were referring to, this school is really far out of reach. So I had to have that conversation with the family to say, gosh, I think the player is awesome, and I think she's got a lot of potential, but she's not at that caliber. I've seen this before in other major powerhouse Division I programs where they send out messages that they had an opportunity to see a certain player play, and they want to invite them to camp. It's really hard to know how to navigate that because the email looks highly personalized, and you're like, wow, this is incredible. Like, you would totally feel special and really want to sign up for that camp because you think, well, they said that they saw her play at this particular qualifier or this particular event, so it must be true. There's a couple of schools that have used this tactic that over time it's bit them in the butt. This is a new program that I'm seeing do it this year. Not a new volleyball program, but a program that's in the top 10. And I haven't seen this tactic used from them before, but they're using it now. So that can be really challenging to navigate, but that's when you have to have somebody that you can talk to say, okay, is this realistic? Like, could my athlete actually play there? And you might want to ask around to maybe a couple of coaches or a couple of people to just kind of get some insight. Do you think that they have potential to play at that level before you commit to the camp? Because when you're in high school, your time is so limited. There are ebbs and flows in recruiting and when coaches can come out and see you. So there's highs and there's lows. And the summer is like at the very end of the high of like when you can actually get seen and gain exposure. So I share that with you because you've got to be really tactical and have a strategy going in. And that really starts with an athletic evaluation. So trying to get some insight as to where they can play and like getting real. Okay. If your kid's 5'4" and, tiny, then, having a real sincere conversation about whether there's any other undersized players on a certain roster and whether you're, aiming for something at all that's realistic. I think that's really important, especially if you have limited resources. So if you are in 8th grade right now, if you're a 2027, this summer, you are considered a rising freshman. So you actually would go to a high school elite camp, okay? Because technically this summer, you've now pivoted into high school. So I want to make sure you understand that as you go to start looking at these camps to figure out what you should register for. There's some outside businesses that host collegiate camps where there are a lot of college programs that come. That is not a very good investment. They sometimes have volunteer assistant coaches. Sometimes they have coaches that are not the decision makers that are going to run those events. There's a lot of college coaches who don't show up. And so they're marketing that certain programs are going to be there. And then you get there and those programs aren't there. So when I shared earlier with you about the big brand named clubs, those are better trusted resources when it comes to going to these collegiate coaching camps. Okay. So camps are tremendous value. I would definitely look at investing in camps. Showcases are no longer a very good value. Let me explain. A recruiting showcase typically will happen the night before a qualifier or a major recruiting event. They've really kind of gone downhill and have not proven to be a very good investment for programs. Ever since COVID, the recruiting landscape has changed quite a bit. And those recruiting showcases don't hold the same amount of value as they did pre-COVID. The reason for that is that the NCAA rules, the legislation changed. And when the legislation changed, what happened is when a college coach participates in a camp, when they go to T Street, Drive Nation, any of those places, and they participate in a camp like at a club, that is now considered an evaluation day for their program. At the Division I level, they get 80 days. And that may sound like a lot, but it's not. When you've got multiple coaches going out to recruit and they're going to different events, that counts as multiple recruiting days because they're at different venues. So when you start looking at the calendar at all the different recruiting tournaments that are on the schedule from President's Day weekend, right, up until May is a quiet period. And then again in the summer when they've got nationals and you've got all these coaches that are out, those days get eaten up. When they coach at a club, so when they go to the collegiate coaching camps at a TAV, a Drive Nation, a T Street, those kinds of clubs, those count as their evaluation days. But the clubs typically not only pay for their travel, but some of those college coaches can make up to $1,000 a day. So when they look at the recruiting calendar and they have to make a decision on whether they want to go to a showcase or a specific tournament or a college coaching camp, what do you think they're going to choose? They're going to choose to get paid, right? Like you're going to get paid. You're not going to go to the showcase. And so that's what I've seen is that all these different businesses are hosting these recruiting showcases the night before qualifiers, and there may only be 3, 4, 5 college programs in the gym. I mean, I've been to some where there haven't been any college coaches. and they'll say that they're watching on Baller TV. Nobody's watching on Baller TV. Okay. So there's not a lot of value in showcases. Save your body, relax, don't do them. Camps at clubs, worth the investment. Camps at actual college campuses, worth the investment, especially if you know that your athlete is within range and can play at that particular program. So that hopefully that gives you a better understanding of the landscape and helps you kind of get a better understanding of what all these different things are. I'm going to go through and start answering specific questions that I'm getting on the Q&A session. So feel free to ask any questions that you want in here, and I'm going to go through and answer as many as I can. Okay. So the first question is, my daughter's 12. Does it matter what camp she goes to? The answer to that is not really, not at 12. At 12, I would say giving her an opportunity to start playing in an uncomfortable situation where she's going to go and, meet new people. There's a lot of value to building a network and helping your athlete with overcoming some of the stress and the anxiety that they feel to go into a new environment to play in a camp. At 12, you want to start building their social network. You want to build, people from all over the country that you can talk to and compare notes with. There's a lot of value in that. So going at 12, it's great to just give them that opportunity to go and play in an uncomfortable situation. Somebody else asked, at what age should the athlete be receiving college camp invitations? They get them at every age, to be honest. It all comes down to where they are getting their marketing information, where they're getting their lists. So there are certain programs that will sell lists to college coaches. And so they get access to your data and then send out those invites as a result. Some college coaches have started going directly to the clubs and then listing out different players to recommend that certain players come to their camp. They do an invite that way. But you can get a camp invite really at any age. I would say that going as little as 12 and 13, there's a lot of value in going and starting to expose your athlete to different college campuses, different coaching styles, and again, putting them in an uncomfortable situation and learning how to overcome and play through that. Because when it starts to count as they get older, they're already seasoned, right? They're seasoned, they're experienced, and as they build that network, you're going to find other families that you've come across in the past that are at these events, and then that's really cool as a family. So the volleyball community is pretty cool that way. How much do you know about the college showcase camp being held in Alabama, March 18th? I don't know anything about it. I'm not a fan of college coaching camps that are not being held by a major brand. I have seen that they have not proven to be of value, that the programs that are committed to go don't always go, which is why I'm sharing that you need to focus on big name brand, nationally ranked clubs. If you're going to go to a collegiate coaching camp where there's supposed to be 20, 30, 40, 50 college programs there, the college coaches want to do well in front of those clubs and club owners. They almost have something to prove. And so it's really important to them that if they say they're going to be there, that they actually show up and follow through on the commitment. And then for a lot of those, they're getting paid. And it's the right coach that you want to be looking and interacting with your athlete. So that's what I can tell you. I don't know anything about the one that you're talking about, but I only would recommend name brand clubs. What age should you begin to consider traveling to camps of colleges our daughter is interested in attending? We're in Texas, but she's interested in colleges out of state. Great question. I would say that, again, if your family is in a position where you're able to make the investment or you want to do a road trip, I would say that what could be really fun is, selecting a college camp that she's going to go to, and then looking at the surrounding areas and other colleges that you could go and just even walk and get on campus at. Again, there's tremendous value in exposing your athletes to different kinds of environments, different places where, they have a certain idea of how things are going to be. And then when they go and they get there, they can really kind of, get a feel for the town, the community, and what other schools look like. I would say looking at big schools, looking at mid-sized schools, looking at small schools, all of that is really, really great to expose your daughter to, especially if you're in that position where you can kind of take that time and do that. If player plans to get better, get more training and just switch positions because of lack of height, is evaluation lower now? How to balance with seeking colleges? It's more about the athlete's athleticism. So when a coach, or like when our team is doing an athletic evaluation of a player, we're trying to understand, or trying to project, I should say, where that player is going to be in 2 years, 4 years, 6 years from now, depending on the age. So you're really looking at the athleticism of the player. How do they move? How well do they jump? What are they lacking? When I do an assessment, I'll typically share that I think, your footwork needs to get faster, or, working on the angles of your platform, or I'll make recommendations of different training programs. That's more or less what we do when we do the assessment. And then we give you an idea based on where your daughter's athleticism, conferences that we feel you should be targeting, where we feel she could play. So a lot of that comes down to the athleticism. Even when you're transitioning positions, no one's expecting that your athlete's going to be perfect or ready to go at whatever age. The coaches are trying to also figure out how coachable your daughter is. Is she somebody that's going to be receptive to constructive criticism and to feedback? So there's a lot more that goes into the assessment that I would share with you. I wouldn't necessarily worry about how much experience they've had in any position. So I've heard those are good, but they also focus on the top recruits. So if you're a mid recruit, are they still good? Emerson, I'm wondering if you're talking about the major brands that bring in the college programs that actually run the camps. If that's the case, and I'm understanding your question, if they are a Power 5 program, they are looking at the athletes that could help their program. If they're a Division 3 program, they're looking for the athletes that they feel that they could potentially get to come to their school or their program. It all comes down to the list of schools, which is why having a come to Jesus, if you will, and really looking at where your athlete is, where the player is, and looking at the list of schools that are going to be there, if it's within athletic range. What I like about T Streets Camp, if you go to T Streets Camp, you'll see a range of different programs. So yes, you're going to see some big Division 1 programs where those college coaches are certainly going to be looking for the top recruits, because they have to look at who's going to help their program win. But they also have some smaller schools that are there. I think Vanguard is there, and University of Laverne. I think there's a couple of smaller schools, even some mid-majors that are going to be there that would be awesome to get exposure in front of those programs. So you really just have to look at the list of the programs that are attending and determine whether or not it's worth your time and your energy. Where do these coaches get a child's name? A letter was sent to the high school inviting my daughter to university in New Mexico. Scott, I'm wondering if that is the invite. So there's a couple of like big businesses that send out, they buy lists, and they've even been acquired from larger businesses where they have a lot of data. And so they might send invites to the high school to attract players to come to their camps. You just need to really be skeptical of the invite that you're getting until you've really thoroughly researched it. If University of New Mexico is sending her an invite, typically they would do that through getting your contact information. If they were genuinely interested, they would get the contact information through University Athlete, which is the software that they use to, evaluate, to find you live at tournaments. So University Athlete is a software that college coaches use to find you in real times at events. And they are able to evaluate the player and put in different kinds of notes. Just so you're aware, University Athlete was actually acquired by NCSA. And so that's why you get a lot of those NCSA calls where they're trying to convince you to sign up for their program. It's because they own the data. So data is everything. How do you get an advocate? I'm an advocate. My team, this is what we do. So Kristen, who's on my staff, will reach out and she will have a conversation with you and talk to you a little bit about your goals and the programs that you're, aiming for. We look at film and then we schedule a call, and we actually have a call just like this, where I do a Zoom call and I talk to the families about all those different factors that I talked about. So the academic, the athletic goals, the financial goals, that's a huge factor, really knowing where you want to be financially and helping your athlete understand what the limitations would be for them. So if you're trying to keep your out-of-pocket expenses between 10 and 15,000 a year, 20 and 30,000 a year, whatever it is, or maybe you're using volleyball as a leg up to go to a top academic school and the out-of-pocket expenses isn't the driving force. There's a strategy for every scenario, every situation. So we develop a strategy based on all those factors. How early should you start the camp? The recruiting process seems early for a 2029. At 2029, the most important thing you can be doing is learning how to use social media to create visibility and exposure. Learning how to use those platforms is really, really powerful. Social media is a long game. It's not a short game. And so I would say learning to create content and posting clips is really impactful. And then showing all about your athlete, like what they like to do outside of volleyball. Can you recommend any other East Coast camps other than NYC Juniors? Bev, Brooklyn Elite Volleyball Club, has done a really good job with theirs. They typically do one in February. I haven't seen them do others outside of that, but Brooklyn Elite and NYC Juniors are the top two in the Northeast that really seem to do a good job with but these are high academics. So if you're not factoring in high academics, I haven't seen any others that have brought in a lot of programs and run it that way. What do I think about the showcases? Yeah, these are the ones that I'm telling you to absolutely stay away from, Lucille. I have not seen very good value in these events. I've had a lot of coaches and even players that have complained after. Should we rotate camps each year? Absolutely. You should be trying to give your athlete exposure at different environments. I will say I have a client right now that went to the Penn camp last year, had a really good experience, did really well. and the coach is genuinely interested in this player. And so for her, I did see a lot of value in going back this year. She's a sophomore, and more than likely she'll get an offer this summer. Like if she performs and she crushes and she does well, she could get an offer as a result. So I do feel that there's a lot of value in going back to a camp when you know there's genuine interest. How do you know if it's a legitimate camp invite rather than marketing? It's a great question. It's hard to really know when you're doing this on your own. That's why I'm saying, like, if you can talk to somebody from your club that has experience, or again, if you're working with somebody like our team, we're able to really give you a better understanding of where your athleticism is so that you don't waste time. So the example that I gave earlier about the player who got the invite from a top 10 Division I program, I know that the kid she's awesome. She's a very good player. She's got a lot of potential, but she's not a Power 5 Division I player. And so I saw value in her looking at like the Patriot League, which is another Division I volleyball conference, but I felt like would be more doable and more in line with the academic goals even as well. So, you kind of got to peel back the onion a little bit and you've got to do some homework and do some due diligence and really, really try and understand if you can play at the level that the camp invite is from. At what age should players start the recruiting process? Really, these days, I would say that there's a lot of value in starting to build a social media presence in middle school, and then starting to get serious. If you're a top recruit, like I have a couple of really high level players that we've started in 8th grade. I don't always take on an 8th grader, but there's a couple where they're pretty high level volleyball players where there's a lot of value in them starting now. Otherwise, the social media game, there's a lot of value in starting the social media side because it's a long game. You're not going to have one post that goes viral and then all of a sudden it's smooth sailing from there and you have 1 million followers. Like it doesn't work like that. So learning how to use the platforms, learning how to create content native to the platform so that you can create the kind of visibility and exposure that you're looking for and kind of build a name for yourself in the industry. And that's kind of what we teach you to do. Are college coaches allowed to inform your coach where you are on the list before June 15th of your sophomore year? Are they allowed to? They can communicate their interest. Everybody breaks the rules. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. That's pretty much the rules these days. If a college you are interested in offers different types of summer clinics, position specific, college ID, how do we know which one is best to attend? You are really looking for the elite camp, the elite prospect camp. If you're trying to be recruited, the position specific camps are more training. The recruiting camps are more of like the elite ID, or it'll say like a prospective student athlete camp, like a PSA camp. You can certainly send emails and ask the coaches. So a college coach can email you back and advise you on which camp you should register for. They can't talk about it in terms of recruiting you, but they can answer questions about camp. So if you sent an email with highlights, which is what I would recommend, I would never send an email to a college coach, even about camp, without video, okay? But if you send an email to a coach with a highlight reel and you say, Coach, I'm looking at your summer camps. I would love to get an idea. Which camp would you recommend for me? And if you share some of that insight and then you share video, a coach is going to take that opportunity to watch your film. It should be highlights. It should not be unedited footage. They're going to look at that film and then they're going to want to make sure that you're properly placed in the right camp. So if they're genuinely recruiting you, they may try and encourage you to come to an elite camp where they know that either their athletes that are already committed to the program are coming, and other athletes that they're trying to recruit, they're encouraging to come. Usually there's 1 or 2 weekends that they're really pushing all of their top recruits to come to so that they can compare you side by side. So that would be a really good way to ask the question without saying anything about recruiting and without asking them if you're on the list or anything like that. Somebody's asking about NCSA. NCSA is a software tool. They have people that help, but there's a lot of basically they work with athletes in every sport. What we do is specialized specific to volleyball. So this is all I do is volleyball recruiting. This is all my staff does. So we manage video editing and provide step-by-step guidance counseling. And we travel to the major events in the country to get in the gym and advocate. No one else in the country does that. So we go and we'll talk to all the coaches. We have a software tool similar to an NCSA. What we do is as we talk to college coaches on your daughter's behalf, we tag in our system. The weekend after, like the day after we return from the event, we send out an email that says, here's the programs that we connected with that are looking for your position in your class. And then we provide guidance on how to follow up with those programs that we talk to on your athlete's behalf. There's a lot of value in that. But we're really the only service that goes to that extent in terms of having relationships with every college program and then really getting out into the field, networking, leveraging those relationships and trying to get better insight as to where you are on their list so that you're not wasting time and resources going to camps and doing things that really just aren't necessary. That's the biggest difference. Like, that's the biggest difference, I would say. It's more of a tool. Somebody else is asking camps on the West Coast. SG Elite, Wave, T Street, and Sunshine are all on the West Coast. They're all in California. Red Rock in Northern California has done some great, they've done some really great events in the past. So that would be another one that you could look into in Northern California where they've done some stuff. I haven't really seen a lot in other areas of the country. Kiva does more of a showcase camp. They've done some showcases. I will say that that's like again, it's a big name brand where you can trust the brand that is pushing out. They really care about the product of what they're selling. So that's another trusted resource. Like that would be a good place to potentially go. But on the West Coast, I named the ones on the West Coast for sure. The ones in the southern states, really Texas is like the hot zone. Texas is the absolute hotbed for college camps. And I feel like a lot of the big clubs host them. Houston Juniors does one. Houston Juniors does a really cool HBCU one that I've seen as well. So if you're looking for an HBCU, which is a historically Black school, they do that. And then they also host events with, like, I've seen Baylor and I've seen Pitt. I've seen like all the big programs go there too. They have different camp products that they sell throughout the summer. So again, a lot of value in going to a big name brand club and just pay attention to the college programs that are going. And again, have a little bit of a reality check with yourself and with your athlete and just make sure that, there's some schools on there that your athlete can actually play. If you just keep aiming high, the experience isn't going to be the same. And it's still good to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation and, to be in an environment where you're challenged and where you're playing in front of college coaches. that's hard for these athletes to do. They're nervous and you kind of have to work the nerves out. I think there's a lot of value in that. But I really think that as you enter high school, especially, you've really got to be careful with how you invest your time and your money. So that's what I can tell you. Hopefully that's really helpful. But really do some research. Somebody else wants to know, hi Kara, how can we get information about your services for recruiting and sending film and having an assessment done? My assistant will reach out, but Sophia, you can also send me a message. When we hang up, if you want to send an email, you can drop an email response to the webinar and I'll get that. But I'd love to, take a look and see where you are and kind of go from there. What are the best social outlets to use? For recruiting? Twitter and Instagram are the two big, those are the two big hotbeds like that coaches are using. There's really, really cool things that you can do to make your content, make your athlete like super visible. You really have to know what you're doing. Like Instagram is phenomenal. You can get so much exposure and visibility, but you really have to know how to create the content and how to post, and then doing so consistently. Like consistency is such a crucial aspect to being successful on social. You've got to show up, and we really work to help you with how to create content on these different platforms and how to stand out. And then how to show genuine interest so that it alleviates, I got to tell you, it alleviates so much pressure off the email marketing campaign. What I've seen, I've been doing this for 13 years. And when athletes do a really structured email marketing campaign, they get really burned out and it's super discouraging. So what I've loved about the social side of things is that a lot of our kids are on social already anyway. And you can kind of sneak this into the daily routine where they are proactively marketing themselves and they're interacting with college programs. And so it's like way better. And I've seen with our clients, I feel like our clients are getting not only more exposure, but it's streamlining their process. The college coaches feel like they're getting to know the athlete because everybody craves that human connection and they really get a feel of the whole player and like what they like to do in their free time. I'm not a fan of volleyball only accounts. I don't want to get into that tonight because we're really talking about camps and clinics, but social, it's Twitter and Instagram are the two powerhouses. I see a lot of value in TikTok. I see a lot of value in Facebook. And I see a lot of value in LinkedIn, but you have to really understand how those platforms work, how to create content native to the platform, and then how to drive the traffic and the visibility. So I have a 9th grader. We haven't posted a single post. What platform is best? Ooh, I just did that one. So thoughts on Legacy Volleyball Club? I love Legacy. Again, name brand. Legacy does a fantastic job. Legacy will have a lot of college programs come in as well throughout the summer. Again, any name brand club, if they are a powerhouse club that competes on a national level and they're competing and, showing well, they're successful in their business, and college coaches want to align themselves with successful clubs. So that's why you'll see so many of the college programs that will go, and then they don't want to disappoint those club directors and those club coaches because they want to recruit their athletes. So that's why there's like so much more value in going to the club and investing in that space than in some of the outside companies. So look at name brand clubs. Legacy is awesome. The coaches are awesome. The whole thing, like I would definitely recommend looking at there. That's good for there. I want to say First Alliance has done some as well. Again, some of the clubs that I've seen when I go and I pay attention to what everybody is doing over the summer, some of the clubs do these camps like on a smaller scale where they have like 3 coaches, and they'll bring in 3 college coaches in from different places, which is really cool because you start to get a feel for those 3 coaches. So you're really able to build a little bit of a connection. The ones that bring in 30 to 35 programs, there's tremendous value in that. I think anytime you can get your athlete in front of these programs and starting to learn kind of the ropes and what to expect, it's really, really powerful. And it makes such an impact in recruiting for them, and it really builds their confidence as time goes on. So huge fan of that. That is all I have time for today. I really appreciate those that stuck around and that were on. Thank you. We'll be in touch. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to, learn more about you and connect with you and kind of go from there. So have a good night.